We got Oklahoma, Auburn, USC, and Florida State. It's worth noting, Chris, who do we think has it worse? Who of that list jumps out to you, Chris?
So this was a thought I had, like looking at the box scores and just seeing the way things played out. You got some historic programs here, like down really bad. Which one is in the worst situation, or at least the one that has the fans the most concerned? I'm going to say Oklahoma. You lose 35-9 to South Carolina. You're down 21-0 in like 6 minutes of this game because you can't stop turning the ball over.
That was awful.
The offensive line is a mess because you didn't recruit it well. It stemmed from the Lincoln Riley era, but they haven't recruited it well. The portal guys haven't worked. Got all those injuries to the wide receivers. You lose offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby. You replace him with Seth Luttrell internally, and it's not working great. And the quarterback, your quarterback of the future, Jackson Arnold, who was supposed to be the guy, has been a dud. Now, maybe that's because of all the pieces around him, but this is an Oklahoma team that is probably going to get to a bowl game this year unless something dramatic happens. But you're again looking at like 6-6, 7-5 at Oklahoma, who we just talked about last week. This never happens to outside of
There's only one.
Outside of a brief stint in the late 90s, and they fired John Blake over it. But Oklahoma also gave Brent Venables a massive contract extension in the summer for no reason. Nobody was trying to hire him, as far as anybody knows. And now he's got a
10 wins isn't that's not going to do you much at Oklahoma.
No, and he's got a gigantic Jimbo Fisher level buyout now, and you're kind of just stuck with this for a while. The defense has gotten better, recruiting is going okay, but you have so many problems on offense right now, and this is year 3. This can't be like this at Oklahoma in year 3, that you're getting pantsed by South Carolina at home.
Damien, of Auburn, USC, and Florida State, who jumps out to you as
I got Oklahoma. Like, let's not kid ourselves. And Chris, I don't want to just echo everything that Chris said, but I'm going to say this is another team that has completely lost their identity, and you have to look at Brent Venables and say that it's his fault because of the fact that he's a defensive-minded coach. And yes, their defense is playing better, but their offense is dog sugar, honey, iced tea. They're bad. They don't have any, obviously the heritage of quarterback at Oklahoma is essentially Heisman or bust. Mentioning an Oklahoma quarterback and Heisman in the same conversation, I would say you're stupid. Like, I don't even know what way you could even formulate that sentence. Like, that's not those aren't two things that go together. They've lost that. They've lost their offensive firepower. And like, to Chris's point, they're stuck with Venables because of his extension. When is he going to realize that this is his fault? When is he going to hire somebody better, a better OC, better position coaches to develop these guys? Like we said, yeah, Jackson Arnold's been terrible. He's been a dud, but is that because the receivers aren't any good? I don't doubt that they have talent, but are they not developing these guys? Like, what is going on with Oklahoma's offense? It seems like a coaching problem. It seems like they're not putting these guys in the right position. They're not developing these guys. I mean, the focus is clearly just on the defense and making that better, but then you're losing the staple of what Oklahoma is. 10 wins is not enough. However many points per game they're averaging, whatever amount of yards they're averaging, it's not enough. And again, when we talk about college football, we're talking about the heritage, the prestige of what makes these universities what they are. What's their calling card? Oklahoma offense, and they got none right now. So it's not looking good for them.
Looking at the rest of these, Florida State, they lose to Duke for the first time in program history. And Duke doesn't even bother to rush the field. What an insult.
Honestly, I'm glad.
It's crazy. I was talking to some people about this last night because I said I've been at 4 consecutive games they've rushed the field. And it'd be hard to get the data, but I feel like the amount of times fans have rushed the field in the last 5 years is probably more than the 20 or 25 years before that combined. It's becoming crazy. The standards are being lowered. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying don't do it, whatever. It just, the standards are lowered. Let's all agree. And for Florida State to lose to a program for the first time in history and they don't even really mess with it, that's not great. And we also had DJ Ventura on Twitter who attempted to break the 3-2-1 Knowles curse by doing what 3-2-1 Knowles refused to do, and I don't know that it's going to work. So we'll see. Also, at USC, you've got a lot more expectation there. I don't think that people were looking at this as a peak year after you lose Caleb Williams, but a bid in the playoff was definitely possible. And yet here we are. USC has now graduated to being, I still think, the best 3 and 4 team in America. I don't know if they hang banners for that at the Coliseum. I don't think they do. But our colleague Antonio Morales pointed out that USC has now blown 14-point leads in back-to-back weeks, and Lincoln Riley has lost 12 games as USC head coach. In 5 of those losses, they have lost 14-point leads. That's
unbelievable.
That's hard. That's hard to do. That is hard to do. What is this?
Yeah.
Year 3 for him there? So
Yep, same as
we're up
Venables.
21-7 at halftime over Maryland and 28-14 in the fourth quarter.
And
Maryland puts 15.
You can't kick a field goal. Like if you just kick the field goal, you win the game. The field goal gets blocked, it's returned, Maryland comes down. Like the amount of things that have to go wrong for UST to blow these games is unbelievable. And
it's crazy.
And they do it every time.
Auburn, they lose a game to Missouri on the road. They're up 14 with Brady Cook injured. He goes to the hospital for an MRI. Reportedly told the staff, I've only got 2.5 games left on Furrow Field. I'm not missing this one in the hospital. Shout out to Mizzou, who had the foresight to build a hospital across the street from the stadium. I don't think they did that specifically for Brady Cook. I think it's been there a long time. But I will say the only saving grace for Auburn right now, despite Hugh Freeze, now has losses to New Mexico State and Maryland last year, and then Cal and Oklahoma with a freshman quarterback in South Carolina, is you can at least reasonably point to Brian Harsin and say, look what this guy did. The counterpoint to that, our guy Sig Nasty exists. Sig Nasty is ruining everything for coaches because he inherited a rough situation, and there is no patience. Because whatever you say, if you are any of these coaches, Indiana has every excuse in the world, and they're sitting on top of the world at this point.